Well, welcome. I think we're good to go, and we'll just welcome folks as they continue to join us. But we're grateful to have you all here. Most of you are all coming back from other sessions, so thank you so much. My name is Tina Rochin. I'm one of the staff technical assistant specialists here, and happy to be joined by your amazing facilitation team, which is Angela Castellanos, of course, and our TCT team from Imperial County, Stephanie and Miriam. Let me just clear my view here. We're going to go ahead and get started. And also, just so you know, if you want to learn a little bit more about us or about previous session, if you missed that welcome session, we'll have slides towards the end of the slide deck you'll receive or have access to that does explain some of that past stuff we've covered or some introductory stuff for the session. But if you're here, chances are you are our BHSSA Phase 4 Sustainability Grantees. And this is session 1 of our series, of our community practice series called Extending Our Efforts, a community practice for us. Session 1, meaning that there are more to come. We're going to build on each other, cover different components. So we welcome you as well as your colleagues to join us in this wonderful series. But thank you all for joining us. I'll repeat too that we are going to make these materials available to you. There's also going to be parts of today that are recorded. A lot of our sharings we keep here, but we do and we'll make sure you get the teaching materials, so that critical information you'll have access to through the recording as well. Welcome back. As you know who we are, I want to also share who else is in the room with you, because there are some new faces joining us or new team members. We welcome you. We are a very specific but pretty large grantee group here. Category 3 under the Phase 4 grantees, and there's a listing of all the different counties that are joining us from Alameda all the way down to Yolo. We welcome all of you. We'll talk about all the different ways we're going to be able to interact. But one of the things I do want to make sure that I share with you today is that this is a series of community practices. And one of the things we want to just make sure that we kind of level set or remind folks is that it's not all just pushing out of information, that we're gathered here today for a shared concern, passion, topic of interest. And we really do want to open up a space to allow our members to share knowledge and expertise, to learn from each other's experiences and insights. So there will be plenty of times that we're going to ask folks to really share in the chat, in your small breakout room or in this large main room, but let us know where you're at, what's on your mind, and if you have a particular insight that would be helpful to another group or county here. Today is going to get us kicked off with a little bit more of the nitty-gritty of sustainability. We're in the welcome and agenda overview. In a moment, we're going to connect, because like we said, this is a community of practice where we will connect with each other, build that trust, be able to turn to each other as well as to ourselves. We're going to look at different definitions of sustainability. And maybe you have one that's a little bit different than what you'll see on the screen or what others will share. And we invite you to do that. We'll also look at revisiting the foundations of school mental health. So a framework that I know that we've used to really begin, start, and build our comprehensive school mental health systems. How does sustainability fit in is what we're really going to look at too. So we'll go back to that, start there, and then continue to move through the different sessions in the series. We're going to explore elements of sustainability. We know it's not just one thing. We know that there are different components that make up sustainability, and we'll talk about those. From the financial, that's usually everyone's first priority is, what about the funding? But programmatically, are there things that we can hold on to, that we can grow, enhance, or that we can strategically partner with others to continue? What do we need to prioritize? All the questions, all the things sustainability we'll talk about. And then, there's been talk about the plans. We've seen kind of your overviews of what it is you wanted to accomplish. And so we're really going to take a moment to reflect. Our amazing TCTs to have, and we'll walk you through a tool that will help with the self-assessment, reflection, and we're going to talk about where we're at and what's helpful to you as you go through this sustainability process. And then closing. So one thing I want to make sure that I get to say is that though we close in now it's about an hour and 20 minutes. So about an hour and a half is our total time together with slides. We have that half hour on your calendar because what we have for you in the last half hour is time for coaching session. You've asked for time for individual or personalized and customized sessions to really talk about what's on your mind. You've come with questions, wanting to connect with others. And so that last half hour, we want to be able to preserve for you to be able to talk about all of those wonderings that you have. It tends to be a smaller group. It tends to be a group with questions, maybe specifically for the TCTs or the TAs or even for each other. And we invite you to be a part of that. So that is what will happen after closing. Those are our next steps, our coaching, and then we'll talk about what happens after that. Today is session 1, where we're building that foundation. And again, definition of sustainability is our focus of today. Session 2 and 3 and 4 all have different areas of focus. Session 2 is strategic planning. 3 is going to be more of looking at the landscape of partnerships. And so we'll walk through that and also look at a tool, a map. And then session 4 is going to be definitely your time in which to share and refine where you're at with your sustainability plan. So it's going to be a definite share out or share within and for each other. What I will say is there is still a lot of time in between sessions. So I just want to remind folks that you don't have to hold on to your questions. Coaching time as well as individual call time, requesting for any sort of TA, even if you don't have a clear question in mind, but just want to touch base about this thought or this idea, you just want to have a thought partner about it. Please request it. We're available to you. We have and we'll provide you with that TA request link as well. But know that in between from October to December, a lot of time there, feel free to reach out to us. We want to hear from you as well and be able to be of support. So that is our TA support. Aside from that, I just want you to know that for each session, we have different outcomes. And so for the series, these are our intentions or our outcomes that we hope that you walk away with. We'll definitely dive into number 1 today, a shared understanding of sustainability. 2 comes a little bit later, as you saw our flow. We'll begin with 3 and 4 a little bit today, too. So we'll definitely touch on these. And if there's something else that you want to see happen, please, again, let us know. We're open to that.
Hi, good morning. So yes, we are going to be exploring a little bit more on elements for sustainability. And one of our, I want to acknowledge that when it comes to sustainability, I think the general feeling it can be uneasiness, anxiety. And me coming from a background of mental health and practicing therapy for years before this, anxiety is often provoked by the unknown. And I think we're talking about an ever-changing constant environment and how funding is changing. And even for BHSSA, it is short-term, and that can cause a lot of anxieties. But here with this, we really want to give you additional elements of sustainability that can help ground our work and maybe provide focus ideas on what we can do to take back control to sustain our work. And so we're going to make connections. I really want to invite you all to make connections on how all of these elements that we're going to present to you today influence each other. How strong partnerships can leverage funding, how policy supports reduce risk for leadership changes, and so on. So we want to keep in mind also that there's a lot of variation in perspectives, especially with all of you in different counties, that we may see sustainability different. So we invite discussion on how you see these elements and how do they play into your county in your area, and if they are available to you. So we really want to hear from each other because this is our COP for sustainability, and I think we learn a lot from hearing different perspectives. So the first one is financial sustainability. This is the main one. I think we all talk about financial sustainability as a major factor. And when we think of sustainability, we think about money. And it's the ability to secure ongoing funding or cost efficiencies. And so for all of us, grant dependency for BHSSA is not realistic. It was our seed money, maybe to start our initiative and start our services. And so we have to start looking into diversified funding or that braided funding. In addition to budget allocation, maybe exploring budget allocation, seeing if there's other possibilities of how we can get other funding streams to support the work. Even cost sharing, having an established community understanding with other agencies that can help support the work financially. And there's also billing reimbursement models that are available, like CYBHI, the fee pay schedule. So I really want to invite all of you to what stands out for you. You can unmute, share in the chat. What are things that stand out for you? What are things that your county or you are already doing for BHSSA? How are you funding right now? Or what are avenues that maybe you're exploring that you would want to learn more? And we just really want to normalize that there are different ways to acquire financial sustainability. And so I think we have to start reshaping our mindset on how we define sustainability, right? And what we're going to define, what do we want to sustain in our work in BHSSA?
Hi, everyone. I'll jump in here. This is Scott from Marin County Office of Ed. Definitely we are going to be participating in the fee schedule. We participate in LEA Medi-Cal billing for special ed services. We take advantage of every grant opportunity we can. But more and more, we're realizing that none of these programs are going to fully fund and sustain the programs that we've developed and that we've used grant money to seed and develop. So where we're starting to move away from just looking at financial sustainability is around service sustainability. And so I'm starting to explore a lot more around how do I work with other organizations? For example, how do I get a federally qualified health center to come onto a campus and provide services to students who are eligible for their services rather than expect the students to go to their campus during the day because they have clinicians who are not fully billing because the students can't leave campus during the day? How do I develop a relationship with community mental health for specialty mental health, get their providers onto campuses? I had a meeting earlier this morning with Daybreak Health to provide services through the fee schedule as an affiliated provider. And so trying to look at how to integrate as many different providers to provide services that may not cost the district something, but allows us to sustain the level of service that we need available to our students without it being a financial drain to the district, even if we don't have the opportunity to bring funds back into the district. So it's expanding that view of sustainability, not just around the financial aspect of it, but about maintaining service availability.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for sharing. And I think you're speaking to what maybe a lot of us or many of us experience as well, that our definition of sustainability starts shifting because we're seeing that the money streams that we originally envisioned are not going to be long term. And so we need to start shifting what do we want to sustain and how can we sustain those essential services and start from there, move from there. Thank you. Anybody else with similar experience or maybe a different perspective?
This is Alicia with Santa Clara. I can add, like Scott mentioned, we're really looking at what services we're providing on our campuses. We've also met with some of our local FQHCs to see where there could be partnership and where there's overlap, which has been really helpful. Another component that we're looking at is in doing enhanced care management and partnering with our local health plans. We're already doing a lot of those services, so just making sure that our providers are trained, that we have those contracts with our Medi-Cal plans, and that anything that we are doing on our school campuses that are billable are being billed. So if it's outside of the fee schedule, making sure that we have those contracts with those managed care plans to bill for those services. and kind of going that route. So that's something that we're doing in Santa Clara.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Well, as we move along, we'll have more time for discussion. So we'll keep moving with the other elements for sustainability. And I'm so thankful. Thank you for sharing. And the more that we share out, the more that we'll learn from different perspectives and resources that we're tapping into. Thank you.
Okay, I'll jump in here. So thank you all. It's, your share out really, a community of practice really is empowering others. It's sharing from your own programs, from your own experiences, but it's very strategic. It really gives an opportunity for others to be motivated, and it activates ideas within others that may be there. I'm sure they're there, but it helps bring concepts, thoughts, strategies, thought processes to the surface. And so really this is not a training, it's a community of practice to really build within your own experiences. Someone mentioned earlier, there's the financial and the non-financial. I love that because this is now we're getting into the non-financial. And whoever shared that talked about, we take the non-financial, the programming for granted because we're just so dialed in. Janice, was that you? I can't remember who it was, but it was like, I wrote that. It was so perfect because yes, programming is an aspect. It is one of the 4 elements of sustainability over time, but somebody else shared this and I wrote this down as well. I love this. Remind me who said this. Lisa, maybe? I don't know. One of you. Know what works. They said, so here in programmatic sustainability, the concept is maintaining fidelity, quality, relevance of services over time, that our programs are being implemented take this with a grain of salt, that our programs are being implemented over time as intended by the funders or the grant writers that got us this funding, meaning our program design over time, there's a maintenance of semblance of our program design, our interventions, our practices, but somebody's, a share out earlier was strategic. We need to shift, right? Even Tina's comment, appreciate the shift in thinking, right? And strategy, because sustainability is very, very strategic. And we are so vast in California that we're not here to mimic and say, this is it. No, what works for us in rural Imperial County, the last few miles of California, doesn't work for Northern California or Central California, right? But this is what the next element says to consider. But we need to consider these elements within the mindset of strategic thinking, right? But it does talk about ensuring that we're, instilling staff capacity, right? We have to account for always instilling cross-training, growing our staff, predicting and expecting staff turnover. So just increasing staff capacity in the more than ever in the knowledge of our program, right? To be able to really speak it in your own words, right? To say it enough. It's that elevator pitch, right? Maintaining the fidelity of our programs, the maintenance of fidelity with strategic thinking, right? Absolutely. The intention of our program maintains, the fidelity maintains, but being strategic as well and looking at the needs of your regions, right? And with anything that we do, sustainability starts in year one. It's seed money. It's seed money. And so always, obviously, there has to be a continuous process for improvement. an enhancement, not necessarily enhancement, but at least getting better at what we do every year that goes by. Within our years of sustainability, it matters. That continuous process of improvement is more important than ever. But that starts right from the beginning. And then, determining if we're providing adequate training and supervision to be able to say that we are really, anchoring our program and that it is embedded. I don't want to get into the other elements of sustainability, but all of these elements are so interconnected. So again, for this element, what does it look like in your county? What does this look like in your county? Do I have a courageous soul that is willing to unmute? Chat is beautiful. But somebody unmute, please, and share out. This is your community. Share out what this looks like in your community or doesn't look like in your community, in your county.
I'll be brave. Sure, why not? It's Janice from Alameda County again. And I may ask Lisa Eisenberg, our partner in this grant, I'm giving you a heads up, Lisa.
Hey, Lisa, we're going to go to you next.
Yeah, maybe you can help support some of the things I wanted to just mention is that we had our mid-project check-ins with our cohort 1. So we've been working with 5 school districts and Alameda County Office of Education from our round 1 funding with BHSSA funding. And so Lisa and West Ed were part of those conversations we had with them, just kind of just checking in. We've checked in with them periodically over the course of the grant, the earlier funding. And this was really kind of a chance to go a little deeper into their plans for sustainability. And I think what I was hearing, and this is where I'm going to turn to Lisa if she's willing, is that there's great desire from all of our partners to continue the programs and services that they were able to develop or expand with BHSSA funding. And there's also kind of a mix of concerns about how they're going to do it, because all of the districts and our Alameda County Office of Education, there's a macro environment to the funding as well. It's not just BHSSA funding. There's an awful lot going on in the world right now, and a lot of uncertainty about sources of funding. And there have been budget shortfalls, within our district. So there's just a lot of choppiness right now, and some reluctance really to make firm commitments at this point in time. There's a lot of we have to wait and see, which is understandable. So there's some initial thinking, there's some initial planning, there's some exploration of some of the things that were mentioned on the last slide in terms of being able to bill. And there's definitely a desire to sustain, but there's kind of a sense of it might be a little too soon to talk about that right now and plan for that right now. So I'm not really offering concrete things because I think that's what's coming out of these discussions right now. And I don't know if Lisa, if there's anything you might add in terms of additional details, maybe even regarding billing or just some of the strategies we heard our partners talking about or themes that came out of those conversations for you.
Yeah, and I must say, Janice, I appreciate that. Thank you so much, because we're feeling that's I come before you as a BHSSA grantee, and it's honest, and it's fragile, right? Lisa,
Yeah, I'm happy to.
Thanks.
I think I would say, and I was trying to find our summary notes from that session. I think I heard 3 themes that came up from the BHSSA grantee, the LEA grantees, was around leveraging billing for those that could do that. And then a lot of questions about and I think there were a couple projects that were intentional in their design around building staff capacity with the seed funding so that the ongoing costs of the program or the interventions were going to be much smaller, building staff capacity so that the ongoing peer-to-peer learning, peer-to-peer model could be a smaller investment and anticipating that, making that case to the LEA for their regarding their district budgeting decisions could be an easier case to be made than like the big one-time investment.
Love that.
And then the third theme that we heard, which I think is an interesting thing to think about, how do we support in this macro budget environment, is around this desire to understand how to look for new grant dollars and what are the skill set needed to continue to replace grant dollars with new grant dollars, or partially fund something with ongoing grant dollars. So I think those were the three themes that we heard from the partners.
Love diversifying your funding, right? So that the risk is less. Thank you so much, Janice and Lisa. We're gonna move on because we have two more elements, but Scott has something very poignant in the chat that please take a look at. Thank you, Scott. Thank you so much. I'm gonna turn it back to Stephanie.
Yes, thank you. And we'll touch on Scott's comment right now too, but community and partnership sustainability, again, another non-financial aspect of it, or can be in certain parts of it. But even the partnerships, right? So important, the partnerships between local mental behavioral health agencies and LEAs. That partnership, very, very vital, on how to get the buy-in from them. But also just buy-in from community, from families and communities. How are we getting the word out? How are we spreading the information of how valuable our services are to community members? Because we know that communities are the ones that go to board meetings. They are the ones that speak up on what services and fight for their children's educational rights and mental health now that we're in school. But we have to start sharing our word. It's how we share data to show our impact and the work that we are doing. And I think that's where we get a lot of the community buy-in as well, and the buy-in from general partners in addition, right? MOUs, if there is a need for an MOU, or even exploring or establishing other collaboration agreements, maybe something that's not financial, but more establishing those collaboration agreements. If we have not been able to get into a certain agency or another community partner, how can we start communicating with them, start setting up meetings to really talk about our shared vision? And I think that was something that somebody had mentioned in some of the comments there before, that having a clear vision, a collective path on how to move forward. I think, how do we get that message out to really build on these community partnerships and start building or refining these collaboration structures, because we cannot no longer work in silos here. We have to get the our entire community involved, all the stakeholders that come into play. And when it comes to children, there's so many services, so many agencies that tap into our youth, that support our youth. And I think that's where we also need to start exploring. And give you an example, here at Behavioral Health, we partner also with Children and Family Services, Behavioral Health, and all our local school districts. We always try to bring them in, even the ones that are maybe resist a little more. We always send them an invitation. We always send them a little email notification that we're thinking of you. Please come back. We want to hear from you. We want to see how you're supporting your students. If you need any help or ideas, we want to chat with you. So always checking in a friendly way and always extending that hand out. And so what portion of these this requires a little bit more out of office work. We're not just within our systems. We have to think outside the box here as well and start getting creative on how we send out this messaging. How do we share our vision with other agencies? So what does this look like in your county? If anybody can share.
I can share a little bit about our experience. So we definitely have the partnerships, but one challenge is everyone's feeling the pull of funding draining up. And so we were able to utilize our partnership with our local county behavioral health to sustain a year of our school-based mobile crisis. But we are now looking for how are we going to do that for the upcoming school year, and making sure that we're having regular conversations like you guys spoke to, the data, collecting the information, and seeing how we can braid funding from law enforcement or our local LEAs that we serve to keep the service going. But yeah, everyone's feeling the tension around funding right now, at least in our area.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is the conversations with community partners, right? Like who funds what and who takes over that financial responsibility over it. And I think also conversations between partnerships have to be, I guess now we need to start shifting on, okay, how do we envision this support continuing? How will it just go away? Or can one of us take that over? Or, just how can we start embedding this into existing services, perhaps? Again, it's that outside the box creativity that we have to start thinking about. But no, thank you so much for sharing. It is a very valuable and realist. I mean, it's happening. I'm happy that you're validating that this experience is occurring, and a lot of us are in this as well. And we have to start exploring other elements.
I know in Tuolumne County, we have been really expanding our children's system of care and involving like our managed care plans in our meetings, and just seeing our children as all of our children. They are all of our children. And we're expanding our interagency resource committee to be able to provide more resources for parents as a team, not just breaking down those silos. And we've been seeing a lot of movement there. And there is some potential funding through the Family First Prevention Plan, not a lot, but just if we're trying to tackle it as a county in general versus our each individual youth service provider. So I think that there's a lot there that can be expanded and support each other as a community team.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. And that maybe leads us into another area.
It does. Very, very concrete work, very strategic work, because this last element of sustainability is well, I don't want to make a statement because again, we're so diverse in our regions, right? But it typically is the hardest. Policy and systems change is typically the hardest, but all of what, like Terry, when you start speaking about interagency, breaking down silos, they're all our kids. You're talking about not your agency, you're talking about your region. They're all our kids, right? We're looking at you use language like we're looking at our county in general, like so are we in Imperial County. So are we. So that you're priming yourself for this last element. You're priming yourself for policy change, systems change, right? Embedding supports, these types of supports into policy, into roles, right? Embedding new roles, the here and now, right? Embedding these practices and roles into our communities as a whole, right? Staffing structures, governance, right? The rules, the processes, the roles that holds our programs accountable or our organizations accountable or our county accountable to how decisions are made, right? Really very, very important element to sustain long-term over time. And of course, accountability systems, right? This is hard. I don't want to speak in generalities, but this is hard. So where are you? Can anyone appreciate policy and systemic sustainability aspect as being strong or fragile or hard? Who would like to share on this one, our last share out before we move on. When you think policy, systemic sustainability, what comes up? What comes up for you?
I can speak for that to share. I think things we do now in education, something new, something already usually it's not new. Like for example, like bring mental health to education is new, right? Or bring different technology or different tool is new. So looking for policy, a newer policy or update policy, we know where's the boundary, where's law and ethics standards. So I always appreciate, do we have any policy in place? If we don't, how we initiate that, how we get guidance on creating one, because things are moving so fast. Policy could be dry when people see it, but policy also is a guidance, like if there's different opinions, let's go back to see what's the policy tell us. Definitely for what we're doing now, need more policy, but sometimes it's only catching the time to make policy when we actually building something new. So that's the part of more work to do with the policy in place.
That's right. With so much competing interests and concerns and fragileness, right? This is hard. This is time consuming. This really, right? Scott, help elevate this aspect. What say you, Scott?
Yeah, this has been on my mind. Yesterday, I was meeting with a district, and we recently received from our evaluators for BHSSA 003, which was has kind of finalized, but two of our district used their funds from that round for creating wellness centers in 2 districts for high school wellness centers. And the district said, well, what do we do with this now? Like, what are we supposed to do with this data? And I said, you have really critical data about how you use grant money to seed and develop programs that have been very successful. And now we're rolling out our communication strategy to the community, to your board of education, to your parent community. You have an opportunity to take your success, to communicate a program that you want to maintain and sustain. Now you've got to advertise your success and say, if we want to keep this going, we need your help. We need money from the general fund. The fee schedule isn't going to cover everything. We need Board of Ed to be aware of this. We need policymakers to be aware. We need foundations. We need grantors. We need other community people to understand. So we need to give ourselves a little credit for what we've done. We need a little PR here. Get the communications.
You need your champions. Champions.
Yeah, we need to get some PR on this stuff, get the media involved or something like that, because as we start looking, I'm going to talk just really about fee schedule. The critical thing for me about fee schedule is if your parent doesn't give you consent to bill, you're not going to be able to bill. So you've got to make sure the parents are comfortable with that. Alicia mentioned, ECM, same thing. If a parent's not willing to sign up for ECM or you get those referrals, you're not going to be able to bill for that. So this is really getting into communication, relationships, and developing trust with parents and the community.
Thank you, Vera, Scott. Thank you so much. Well said. So this is all, very, very interconnected, very, very interconnected. Would love to discuss more, but in the interest of time, we're going to move on, but we're going to stay focused on these types of conversations. Stephanie, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yes, and we're already here. We're really thinking, doing a lot of great reflection and just thinking about how we're going to continue moving forward, what strategies maybe we could take from each other on how to push forward and really emphasize the vision, the need for these services. And I think that's definitely the communication that needs to be out there, that this is really, we have to advertise this need. If it goes away, the need for this, the students' needs are still going to be there. We still need to serve these students. And so definitely a way on how to tell that story. And thank you, Angela. Yes, how to tell that story. And yes, Vera, it's a PR standpoint, like, great, how do we advertise this? How do we get this message across? I love that. And so with this section here, now that I think we've been doing this self-assessment and just reflection, but we just really want to acknowledge that there's been a lot of information shared. And we want to dive into just having a conversation on what stands out for you. But before we get there, and before we talk about anything else, we want to share also a sustainability tool. The sustainability tool, I don't know if we could drop that in the chat. This is just a little screenshot of some of the questions that are there, but we really want to encourage you all to take this back, think, maybe have this trigger some of your thought process. I think it's already inspired a lot of, you already have some inspiration and some thoughts already in motion. And hopefully this can help you elevate that a little bit more. We do really want to make a disclaimer that this is not a tool that we're like imposing on you or anything. This is just a resource that we want to share. Of course, if you have any questions about a sustainability plan, I think we've all seen from your grantee overview summaries that a lot of you have to develop some sort of sustainability plan moving forward as part of your deliverable. And that will be shared. That will be further discussed with your CBH grant monitor. And so, but this is just a resource for you to have and just to take back with you with your team, just for reflection. And we'll definitely come back to this as in the next few sessions for the COPs that we have together. We could definitely do a lot more reflection on this, but I'm really appreciating all the conversation, the great thoughts, the ideas. I think Miriam and I are also thinking, because we are grantees as well. So we're also thinking about everything that's being said. And so we could all benefit. We're all benefiting from these conversations. Definitely. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Stephanie. I mean, we can have just this in this particular section is have a whole day conversation, right? On some of these pieces. And it also just kind of helped me also think about when I worked in schools, like some of the pieces around just telling that story that really just, reminded me of how much engagement I had to do with like working with the PTA, working with like the board of supervisors, having those presentations and really having them tell your story, right? Having the youth and the kids, the students talk about some of that impact. And so that just kind of took me back and I just got really excited about that. But thank you for taking us through those elements. I know that was a lot of information. And so as we think about our work today, we have a couple of prompts that we want to just kind of invite you to kind of think about. I'm going to skip a couple of different, here we go. So as you think about your kind of the elements or the work that we just discussed today, or even the work that you've been doing for the past few years, like these are some questions to think about or consider. Like, what have you learned from your assessments or data that informs your sustainability, right? What curiosities have come up for you? These are some very thoughtful questions as you're taking back this tool or you're going back to having those midpoint conversations with your partners. What's also an area that you feel really strong in, right? And one that needs some additional support, right? So as you're thinking about what area is fragile, I know, I think it was Lisa that talked about, working through what are some of the pieces that we really are shining and how do we continue that work, right? The other prompt question or essential question that you can think about is, if your work were to continue beyond the funding, what do you want to sustain? What parts of it, right?
Yeah, I really like what Scott shared about focusing more on the service, sustaining the services. That really stood out for me about, I've been really focused on sustaining we provide clinicians to the LEAs for some tier 2 and tier 3 services. And I've been so focused on that. It's like, but what is another way? We need to figure out how else we can bring the services to the schools. And it's just it's like, it made me expand my vision of what we could do. Why not? Maybe we should start exploring, federally qualified health centers and, where everything's pretty small here, but, one thing that's really essential to me, we have a lot of really, really small LEAs in our county that would never be able to sustain the fee schedule. And so they really rely on our services. So it's like really important for me that we make sure that they're not lost and that we can still provide them mental health services. That's kind of my one of my big whys. And also for me, that's something that's really essential to sustain.
Thanks, Terry. And then Vera mentioned to sustain the underlying purposes, finding your why. Kind of reminds me of Simon Sinek's work, right? Is finding your why and ensure continued availability of mental health services for youth. Amanda mentioned, and as someone new to my role, it has been validating to hear about other organizations and their journey, right? We're all in different stages and phases and process, right? So it's a process.
I think kind of building on what Terry was just saying, as well as Scott and really everybody, one of the things that we tend to try not to forget is that there is the illusion of, great, you fixed it when it comes to mental health support within schools. And as a fellow rural community up in the North State, that we have very, very small entities. And yes, the work is wonderful to that point of PR, where it's like, okay, cool, awesome. This is a great thing. You fixed it, problem solved. One of the things that we fall prey to in sometimes when we're showing data or trying to communicate with CBOs or LEAs, anything like that, is sometimes we leave out what was happening before services started, not just by showing what services have begun, what are continuing, and why we should sustain them. Like, that story is excellent, and it's a wonderful representation of the hard work that everyone is doing involved in this, but also the putting the mirror back in front of our communities, our Board of Education, those kind of things, where it's like, hey, no, if we do not sustain these things, it's not just that the problem isn't solved. We now immediately revert back. As soon as those services stop, these problems continue along with the problems that we have been actively fighting against. So I think that portion of sustainability is a really important highlight. And I think it definitely echoes through today's conversation.
Yeah, thank you, Logan. That's well said. Well said. And so as we continue on our journey for today, the next few months, these are some of the pieces that we want to have you kind of think about, right, as you're going through this sustainability strategy and really developing. And we don't have to have the answer today, but eventually we'll have to develop some sort of strategy. And so I'm hoping that what we share today is going to take you through those different pieces or different elements of that sustainability strategy. And so just all of these pieces, all of these questions can continue on, taking them back to your teams as you kind of think about and review the self-assessment tool as well. Continue on to having those conversations with your teams also. And so I'm going to now transition it to Tina to close us out for today.
Thank you, Angela. And thank you to everybody who has shared or is willing to comment on what other people are sharing, because what I'm seeing is impact of your words, your thoughts, your ideas and insights. And for me, what's staying with me is moving from programs to services, and to always not just respond to change or accept that change is continuing, because we know it is constant, but it's getting our teams and systems ready to meet the needs of a change or to change ourselves. So thank you for all of that. Little homework. I keep saying homework with a little H, right? Because we just want to encourage you to, we're not going to bring up the hub this time, but you know where it is. Please join. As you receive the slide deck, you'll also get the links to the hub, but I'll also plug it in too. But just know that it is there for you. Anything we've talked about or additional resources. So many of you are looking for reading materials, you're doing tech studies, or you want to see other models than the ones we've shared. Those are available. So please check out the hub. Link is in the chat. Thank you to Angela for putting that in chat. Also, the assessment we discussed, the link is here again. So just want to make sure that you have access to that if you haven't already taken that from the chat section. And if you haven't, thank you to those who already updated their grantee county summary overview, which is specific to sustainability. If you have not, this is just a simple slide deck. Your slide for your county will be listed there. We just want to make sure if there's been any changes that we should be aware about, that we can support with, that it's updated on there. So please be sure to check that out. That is your sustainability grantee county summary. And with that, Again, TA request, if you need it, we're here. If you have specific questions for grant deliverables, CBH is always making themselves available too. We just want to make sure you are aware. Everyone's here to support you. And with that, I leave you with words from a wise person. Often when you think you're at the end of something, you're at the beginning of something else. We are starting, we're on this journey together, and we appreciate you being here, contributing to one and all. Thank you, Fred Rogers, for the quote. Thank you to this wonderful team. Stick around a little bit longer, folks, because TCT and TAs, we're all going to be sticking around for the next half hour. And for those of you who are transitioning to something else, thank you again, and we'll see you very soon and in December. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, everybody. We'll be sticking around for the after party here if you have any specific questions.